This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Windows 11. In this class, I'll be walking you through some of the changes and updates we've seen in this new version of Windows, Windows 11. All right, we will walk through essentially the main interface, our desktop, the start menu, the taskbar, and a couple of the kind of built-in apps like File Explorer and Settings to see how things have changed. Right, in some ways, cosmetically, things have changed quite a bit. But for the most part, you'll find that if you could use Windows 10, as I imagine some of you are still using Windows 10, you can very easily apply what you know in Windows 10 to Windows 11. Okay. Now, just a quick note here. I do want to mention that this class is meant to serve really the everyday user of Windows. Okay. And so we're not going to, this is not meant to serve so much as a deep dive into the very technical aspects of what's changed. For example, the security base for Windows 11 has changed quite a bit. We're not really going to be getting into the nitty gritty of the security features, all right? If you want to learn more about that, I encourage you to check out Microsoft.com or visit one of the links I give you at the end of this presentation. All right, I will kind of touch on security a little bit because like I said, it is one of the big changes, but in terms of the real technical aspects, that's something you can consult, you can review over at Microsoft.com or really any great computer website, okay, that covers those things. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in. Now, what I want to start with first, before we even talk about Windows 11, is like I said, I imagine that some of you are still using Windows 10, okay, which is totally fine. So I just want to kind of get ahead of that and answer some questions that you might have about Windows 10 and getting to Windows 11. So let's start there and then we'll talk about Windows 11. So I have Windows 10. One question might be, do I have to upgrade to Windows 11? No, you don't. All right, Microsoft will continue supporting Windows 10 until October 14th, 2025. All right, so in other words, those automatic updates you get, or sometimes you get those pop-ups that say update Windows, okay? You'll keep getting those through October 14, 2025. Those are typically security patches just to enhance the security in Windows 10. So you'll still receive those for about almost the next 4 years, roughly. All right, but after that point, Microsoft will no longer provide security updates for Windows 10. All right, sometimes they offer what's called extended support, which is kind of a reduced version of normal support. But let's just assume they don't offer that at all, and we'll just say that they're going to cut support after that date, October 14th, 2025. So that kind of leads to our next question. Should I upgrade to Windows 11? Okay, this is your call. All right, so like I said, all support for Windows 10 will end on October 14th, 2025, which means that after that point, you'll be more vulnerable to malware and other attacks. All right, that's the big risk you take when you're using an unsupported version of Windows. One of the big advantages to Windows 11 is better security from the start, all right? And if you kind of Google Windows 11 or you're trying to learn about it, this is one of the things you'll probably see most often that they like to mention. Essentially, not to get too technical, I've included a quote here with two big features, one called Secure Boot and one called the TPM 2.0 chip, all right? TPM stands for Trusted Platform Module. Essentially, what Windows has done this time around is things that were kind of optional in Windows 10 in terms of security, things that you could either turn on or off, okay? As a default, they were turned off, and you had to go through and turn them on yourself to add more security. With Windows 11, they're basically just, they're kind of required now, okay? So, which, kind of how you look at it is, could be a good thing or a bad thing, but they're basically just giving you better security from the start that you can't really go in and change unless you're a computer whiz, okay? And that's also part of the reason why, which kind of leads me to my next question that you might have. Part of the reason why Windows 11 requires some newer computers for the most part. Okay, so another question you might have is, can I upgrade to Windows 11? It typically requires newer computers, and they say no more than 4 years old. Again, that's approximate. It's not an exact number, but that's kind of what they're finding. It has to do with the processor installed on these CPUs. from computers that have been shipped within the past 40 years. All right, so in order to see if your computer is even compatible with Windows 11, Microsoft does offer a great free app called PC Health Check, which you can download from Microsoft.com, and that will do it for you. It will just look at your computer and tell you if it's compatible or if it's not. And it will also tell you why it's not compatible if it's not. You can also just go to Microsoft.com and just look at the list of minimum requirements. If you're familiar with the requirements and you want to just look yourself, you could do that too. And I'll share those links at the end of the presentation to get to the app and to get to those system requirements. All right, so again, big takeaway here is you do not have to upgrade to Windows 11 right now if you don't want to, but support will end in 2025, and after that point, you'll be vulnerable to attacks. So at that point, you may want to start taking the steps to upgrade to Windows 11, or if you have to, purchase a new computer that can accommodate Windows 11. All right, and remember, if you have any questions, just use that chat bubble and GoToMeeting. Click on the chat bubble, select Organizer Only from the dropdown, and then type in your question and hit send. Now that we've covered gotten this out of the way, let's jump into Windows 11 here. Let's talk about what we'll be looking at today. So what's new in Windows 11? Okay, and new is kind of I'm using that term kind of liberally because a lot of stuff isn't necessarily new, but it might look new, and also it might be new in the way it's sort of built into the operating system, and we'll see what I mean by that in a little bit. All right, so one of the things you might notice if you have Windows 11 now, or if you are, if you've kind of looked at if you've looked at maybe a preview of it, okay, a video, a tutorial, one thing you might notice is the icons that we see all over the place, whether it's on the desktop, in the start menu, wherever. For the most part, they are modernized, okay? Not a huge thing. They just kind of look a little more kind of upgraded, to be honest, a little more contemporary, like I said, modern. Okay, they have the nice rounded corners, a little sleeker, just to give it a more updated look, and again, to kind of bring it up to the year 2022, all right? So you will notice those different icons. They don't look much different, just a little bit, again, a little bit upgraded is how I would describe them. Now, kind of in tandem with that, this idea of modernizing the look of the icons, they've also redesigned some of the sections or parts of the operating system you might be using every day, or at least somewhat frequently. So for one thing, the context menu, or what's usually called the right-click menu, it's a little bit different. Again, not a huge change, but it does actually look a little bit different, and we'll see what that looks like in just a few minutes. All right, the taskbar, which is the horizontal bar at the bottom of your desktop. Okay, that's one of the most immediate things. That's one of the changes you probably notice the most immediately. Also, what you'll notice is definitely the start menu. All right, the start menu is very different from how it looked in Windows 10, so we'll cover that in detail in just a little bit. The settings app, which is the app that's built into Windows that you use to get into all the different settings, okay, that's also been refreshed a little bit. The settings that you may or not be familiar with, they're still there. Okay, not much has changed in terms of what they're offering you in settings, but the general interface for the settings has changed, and we'll review those changes again once we get to the settings app. And another app that's been tweaked a little bit is your File Explorer app, okay? File Explorer is the app we use to get to all the files and folders in our computer, all right? Previous earlier versions of Windows used to call it Windows Explorer, now it's called File Explorer. And this has also been updated a little bit. Again, in terms of the sort of mechanics, how we navigate through the files and folders, that's still the same. It's really just the cosmetics, all right, the way it looks. And I will say that as we go through, and I'll probably point this out again, one thing that I have found that Windows 11 has done is kind of take the minimalist approach. All right, some things have been pared down a bit to give you just kind of the most important options or most frequently used options, which again, depending on your preferences, could be good or bad for you. But that's kind of what they've done. They've kind of pared things down, take a minimalist approach, a little bit cleaner, optimize screen space a little bit. Now, some of the apps and features are built in a way that they necessarily weren't in Windows 10. So your search tool, your task view, which allows you to actually create multiple desktops and work between them, your widgets, which is actually new in Windows 11 here, and your Microsoft Teams app, that's also new here. Those are, they're not new things, but they're new in the fact that they're built in to the taskbar, which we'll see in just a little bit. Okay, and we will, some of those we will visit in a little more detail. All right, another feature that's new to Windows 11 here is your snap layouts and groups, okay? If you've ever taken a Windows class with me here at the library, I did cover snapping in Windows 10, the way you can very quickly change the positioning of multiple windows on your screen so they're sharing equal space, or some kind of logical layout. Snap layouts and groups kind of makes that easier, and you can create different layouts for different windows on your screen. So you can it's meant to enhance multitasking. That's the whole idea. And we'll see what those look like a little bit later. All right, and like I mentioned before, Windows 11 is a better security baseline. Again, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the security here. I can show you at least the app that you can consult to look at the security settings, but basically, as I mentioned, Windows 11 just comes out of the box, okay, so to speak, with better security. All right, everything is essentially turned on already. We have that TPM 2.0 chip that's required, and that's essentially what that chip is the reason why it needs to run on newer computers. All right, so with all that said, let's just leave this PowerPoint presentation for now and just jump into my Windows 11 operating system on my computer. Just make sure, there we go. I'm gonna get a quick sip of water and then we'll start. All right, so right now we are looking at the desktop on my Windows, on my computer with Windows 11 installed. All right, perhaps, so two things that are kind of, to me, the most noticeable. One of them is, of course, the taskbar, as I mentioned before. So just a quick review here, in case you're not too familiar with Windows or you're not familiar with the terminology. When we use Windows, we can access all of our stuff through essentially three main areas. Our start menu, which we'll come to in a few minutes, our desktop, which is this main work area here with the big picture, and your taskbar, which is technically part of the desktop. It behaves a bit differently, so it kind of helps to separate the two different entities. Your taskbar is this down here, underneath that arrow, that light gray bar. So the taskbar here in Windows 11 is a much brighter color than it was in Windows 10. Just it pops up a little more. It looks a little, again, it kind of looks a little cleaner, a little brighter. Okay. In Windows 10, it was just that kind of dark gray, almost black color. They brighten things up here in Windows 11. All right. Not a huge thing. What is huge about the taskbar, though, is the alignment of your icons, okay, which I'll circle here for a second. You have your pinned icons down there. Remember that Windows allows you to pin apps to different locations so you can get to them faster. The taskbar is one of those places. But most noticeably, the start menu icon is grouped with those icons in the center of the toolbar. For so long, we've been used to the start menu being on the left corner here. All right, with Windows 11 here, they moved it to the center. Now, there is a way to move the start menu icon to the left. It will take everything else with it too, but I'll show you that a little bit later. Very easy to do. But as a default, your taskbar icons and your start menu are in the center of the screen there. And you still have your system tray over here on the right. Okay, remember that your system tray, it's kind of a quick access area to specific settings like speakers, internet and Wi-Fi, microphone, and you have that arrow there to show hidden icons. Again, this isn't new, just to kind of review what this does here. All right, the hidden icons are typically other settings and also background apps. Okay, some apps that you use work best when they're kind of already turned on and they're running in the background. And it will show you what it's running right there. And remember, you can add these hidden icons. If you want to show them in the main system tray at all times, you can click and drag and place them down there instead. And if you want to hide them again, click and drag it from the main system tray, point at the arrow, and then drop it into the hidden icons box. Okay, now the other, and we'll talk about the taskbar in more detail in just a little bit. But again, cosmetically, you'll notice it's brighter and the icons are centered. Another change that's not quite as obvious, which you might not see so well on your end, are the icons of the desktop. So like I said, the icons have been modernized pretty much across all of Windows 11. All right, in fact, let me just make them bigger so you can see them a little better for now. So let me pull out Firefox here. So this is a shortcut. Remember, whenever you see an icon on your main desktop area and it has that arrow, okay, that indicates a shortcut. Okay, it's just a quicker way to get to that particular app or file or folder, whatever you're putting on, whatever you're saving as a shortcut to your desktop. Okay, the arrow itself is a bit upgraded in the way it looks. It doesn't look so basic like it did in Windows 10. All right, and the icons too, just the icons. All right, even these folders, again, notice the rounded corners, all right, a bit of a sheen to them. So they just look a little bit more contemporary, okay, a little more graphically rich. I just wanted to point that out, that they do look a little bit different, and that's kind of an indication of what you're going to find in other places in Windows. Okay, those modernized icons. Now, I want to make these icons back to medium. So while I'm doing that, I may as well show you the context menu or the right-click menu. All right, so as I said, several things were redesigned, like our taskbar. One of them was the context menu, or like I said, what we often call the right-click menu. So remember, whenever we use a PC, a right-click with the mouse always brings up a menu. That's what it does. So if we right-click on the desktop background, we'll get a set of options through which we can manage that background in some way, or that desktop. If we right-click on the taskbar, we'll get options for the taskbar, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why they call it a context menu, because the options change depending on what you click. So again, if I right-click on the desktop background here, the menu itself is a little, again, just a bit more, a little more sophisticated, upgraded, okay? And each option in that menu has its own little icon, okay? Oh, my lights went out. Give me 1 second here. All right, that was fun. Right-click menu, sorry, this is where we were. So each option has an icon. That's something that's a bit newer as well. So like I said, Windows is really, in this case, Windows 11 is making, they're trying to make better use of icons in terms of how they look. And also icons, the whole point of an icon is that it kind of visually tells you what that particular tool or option does. So in case you're not sure, if I look at new and I see a plus sign, that must mean that I can add something like a new folder, like we see here, new folder, new shortcut, etc. Okay, so the icons are there to kind of help you understand what each tool and option does. All right, so Windows 11 is making better use of icons. Now, if you go to the bottom of this context menu, you will see show more options. If I click on that, I will get the classic view of the context or right-click menu. So if you prefer this style, just go to show more options, and this is what you'll see here. And this is how it looked essentially in Windows 10. Okay, notice not as many icons, but it is based, in this case, it's the same options. There are some instances where you may get more options than what you saw in the initial menu. Okay, so again, right click, when you see show more options, you will get the classic view. Also, you may get, just as it says, more options than what you see in this initial context menu. So just something to bear in mind as you go through. Oh, I meant to put those back to medium, so I will go to view and select medium icons. All right, so again, but it's the desktop otherwise really hasn't changed. It serves the same purpose. It's just your main work area where you can create, where you can add shortcuts to specific programs, files, and folders. If you're not sure of how to do that, I encourage you to check out our Windows 10 Essentials video on our YouTube channel, where I go over creating shortcuts, because it's still done the same way here in Windows 11. Okay. And remember, you can also save things, you can save files and folders directly to your desktop in your desktop folder, something that we'll see in File Explorer a little bit later. Now, what I'd like to do now is move down to the Start menu, because this is, the Start menu, of course, is something that we use pretty much all the time when we use Windows 10 or any Windows operating system. All right, they call the Start menu for a reason, because that's typically where we start when we want to look for different, all the programs that are installed on our computer, and maybe in some cases files and folders. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Start menu icon, and there's my Start menu. All right, now in Windows 10, the Start menu is considerably different. In fact, let me do this real quick. I saved one picture. Let me do another one. Let's see if we can do this. I think that's close enough. One second here. Oops. Okay, let me go back to that. Sorry, I got this, I promise. Windows 10, Start menu. All right, I'll tell you what, we'll just look on it right on this website here. So let me zoom in a little bit on that. So this was our menu in Windows 10, our Start menu. All right, if you remember, sorry about the pop-ups here. We launched our Start menu, and then what we saw was a main apps list here. On the left of that apps list was some other controls down here, like our profile to lock our account temporarily, sign out. Our power button was down there. And we also had access to a few other things like folders, settings, and File Explorer. All right, and then to the right was the tile area. And this is where we could pin apps from the list to get to them faster. Oh, and there's an ad for tortilla soup. Interesting. All right, let me close that. So in Windows 10, this was there in the Start menu. This is how you could pin apps to the Start menu. You would select an app from the main list here, okay, and pin it as a tile to the right side here. So that was the Start menu in Windows 10. Now here in Windows 11, basically, instead of showing us the main apps list, it actually just gives us the pinned apps first. All right, that's what you're seeing here. And in fact, to the right, there is, if I can, I'm not gonna be able to use the pen, but to the right, there is actually a little scroll bar that pops up. If you have more apps that are pinned than what you see in these first 3 rows, there's a scroll bar to scroll down for the rest. Okay, now you'll notice these aren't tiles. Okay, so Windows 11 abandoned the tile look. All right, it was kind of a sort of a tablet or mobile friendly look. That's what they were going for in Windows 10. In this case, they've abandoned the tiles, and now the pinned apps are just kind of in this grid style layout. Okay, again, kind of a bit more minimal, I would say. And if you want to get to all of the programs installed in your computer, you just have to go to here to where it says all apps. All right, unfortunately, I can't use the pen right now or else it's going to close. Just follow my mouse pointer right here where it says all apps. Okay, if I click on that, this will bring me to the full apps list. There's a vertical scroll bar on the right to scroll down through the whole thing. All right, and in this case, this looks similar to the apps list in Windows 10. Just a vertical list, everything is arranged alphabetically. Okay, one difference though that I did notice in my own kind of research here, if I can just find, there we go, is that in Windows 10 we had a lot of different folders in the apps list, which I have discussed in my Windows 10 classes. There are still some used here, like Microsoft Office tools, for example. So just to reiterate, when you're using this apps list and you see a folder, okay, that indicates, of course, there are a few things grouped together in a folder. You'll also notice a drop-down arrow. So if you click on the drop-down, like in the case of iTunes here, you'll get a few related items that are grouped together in a folder. Okay, in this case, it's the iTunes program itself and also a document called About iTunes, which just contains some supporting documentation about iTunes. All right, and you'll see a few more folders throughout as you scroll, but not as many as we saw in Windows 10. So, for example, essentially what they've done is some of the folders, they just took what was in them and just place them in the main list. Okay, so for example, Windows accessories, we saw that in Windows 10. That was a folder down here under W, Windows accessories, which grouped together a whole bunch of pre-installed kind of legacy Windows programs. Okay, Paint, for example, Notepad, Snipping Tool. They were all grouped together in Windows accessories. In this case, what they've done is just kind of take those individual programs and just gave them their own entry in this main list. All right, so if I scroll up to P, I'll see Paint, okay, with an upgraded icon. If I scroll to S, I'll see Snipping Tool, again with an upgraded icon, etc., etc. Another couple others that have been affected this way that I kind of find helpful are your settings, okay? Previously, your Windows 10 settings, they were in a folder called Windows System, which wasn't all that intuitive. In this case, they just give you a settings entry right here. Okay, an access point right here. Same thing with File Explorer. All right, that was also placed under Windows System in that folder. Now it just has its own access point here. So a bit easier to find in your start menu. All right, now I'm going to go back to the, actually, let me go back to the initial start menu screen to these pinned apps. All right. Actually, I'm sorry. If you want to pin an app, I should have showed you this. I'm sorry. To add an app to that pinned app section, by the way, very simple, just like it was in Windows 10, same thing. Just right-click on the program. So I'll just use GoToMeeting here. If I right-click on it, I will get a little context menu, and the very first option will say Pin to Start. I click on it. Now, if I go back and scroll down through my pinned apps, it's the last thing in the list here, GoToMeeting. So very simple to add a pinned app. If you want to unpin the app, right-click on it from this menu or from this screen and just select Unpin from Start. All right. You can also reorder the sequence of your pinned apps just by clicking and dragging. Okay. Another thing that's kind of been abandoned here in Windows 11, in Windows 10, when we had those tiles, we were able to group them by different categories. We could do like workplace apps, we could do favorite apps, entertainment apps, things like that. Okay, so your pinned apps could be grouped by different categories. They don't offer a grouping tool in this case. Everything is just in one big pot. So it's really up to you to just kind of reorder the sequence if you want specific apps right at the top. All right, now a few other things about the start menu here. Let me just make sure I'm covering all my bases. You'll notice underneath is a recommended section. Okay, let me just see if this gives me, yes. The recommended section will give you essentially recently used files. Okay, so anything that you've opened and modified recently or saved recently will be available in this recommended section here. It's essentially just a quick access area to jump back into a file that you're currently working on, and you'll see a little option for more here to get to a longer list of other apps, or excuse me, other files that are just older than the ones in this section here. All right, very simple. And you can remove them if you just don't want them showing. You can right click on one and select remove from list. Maybe there's a file you're keeping confidential, you can remove it so someone doesn't see it, something like that. But you can right click on it and select remove from list if you don't want it showing under your recommended section. All right, at the top, we're gonna go to the top and then back down to the bottom. There is an embedded search tool here in the start menu, which we did not see in Windows 10. All right, so if we click in there, what it really does is when you click into the search bar, it's going to just open up the search app like this. So notice I'm just leaving the start menu, it's just kind of turning it over to the search tool or search app. And remember, just like in Windows 10, you could search various categories, apps, you can search for documents. Notice the filters here, apps, documents. You can even search the web from here directly. And you could search other things, emails, okay, in your email app, folders, music, etc., etc. But in most cases, you'll probably just select all, which is the default option, which allows you to just search everything. Okay, and if it's a document, which is usually what we look for, that's the first thing we'll find. We'll look in your documents and locate a specific document that you've indicated with your search terms. All right, now let me go back to the start menu. I'll just click on the start menu icon again to open it. Now, at the bottom here, again, it's quite different. So let me just see if I can. I just want to look at something really quick here. Okay. So this is what it might look like on your end. You might have another icon here. I'll touch on that in a second. Essentially what they've done is these were the options that used to be, I'll bring this up again, on the left side of Windows 10 start menu, all the way over here where I'm circling, okay? But they've now placed them at the bottom of the start menu in Windows 11. And you only have two things here. On the left side is your profile icon where you can go to change account settings, lock your screen, okay, or lock your account, I should say, and sign out of your account, just like you can with Windows 10. Okay, and I should mention while we're here that the lock screen and login screen, you still have those here in Windows 11. So when you first turn on your computer, the first thing you'll come to is the lock screen indicating that your account's locked. And then you'll come to the login screen where you put in your Windows ID and password, and then you're signed in. Okay, it looks a little bit different. I believe like the font they're using, things like that, but it works the same exact way here in Windows 11. All right, but back to the start menu here. So that's our profile icon where we can lock our account, sign out of our account, so somebody else can sign into theirs potentially, and where we can go to change account settings, like adding a picture, syncing our Microsoft account with other devices, family safety, things like that. To the right is your power button. And just like in Windows 10, from here we can put the computer into sleep mode, which basically just pauses your computer from running. All right, powers down your screen, so you're just saving on energy while you're temporarily absent. Under that is shut down, and then restart. Now in Windows 10, we were able to add more icons to that section, which is basically the same as this section here. Windows 10 was on the left, Windows 11, it's at the bottom. We were able to add folders, like your main Windows folders, documents, pictures, music, etc. You were able to add access to your settings. You can add an access point to File Explorer. You can still add those things. All right, we'll come to that in a little bit when we get into the settings app. All right, but you can add more stuff to that. Again, you can add more stuff to this bottom section, and we'll cover that when we get to settings. If you have any questions about the start menu, remember, just direct them to the GoToMeetings chat service. All right, so now what I'd like to do is let's go back down to the taskbar for a minute here. And so we already kind of touched on the cosmetic differences, right? It's brighter, icons are centered. Something that's kind of different with Windows 11 here, after your start menu icon, the next 4 icons, which I'm circling right now, okay, these are essentially embedded into the taskbar. These are not pinned icons. So just to review, if you open up your start menu, you can pin apps to this pinned list here. You can also pin apps to your taskbar to add another access point. Same process. Go to your main apps list, right click on the app, go to more in this case, and select pin to taskbar. So this is the calculator app as an example. I click on it, and now it's down here, pinned to my taskbar. All right, so now it's just another access point to it. Now, but like I said, the first 4 icons after your start menu, I'll circle them again. These are not pinned, they're just built into the actual taskbar. You can turn them off, all right, but Windows is doing this on purpose basically because they want you to use these, especially I should add, at least in my opinion, the Microsoft Teams app, which we'll come to in a second. All right, so the first one we see is the search tool, which we saw in Windows 10. The difference is that in Windows 10, the search box was actually built into the start menu itself, the taskbar itself. In this case, we just have to click on the magnifying glass to open it and then search from here, which we just saw before, your search app. All right, so that's built in. The next one is your task view. Again, this was something available in Windows 10, but the icon is a bit more noticeable for sure. It was easy to kind of gloss over in Windows 10. In this case, they really made sure you're seeing it. So if you're not familiar with Task View, let me click on this for a second. Let me make sure you should be seeing that. I'm making sure that it's not interrupting the screen sharing. Let me just leave it like this. You can actually add more desktops, basically virtual desktops. So if I click on New Desktop here to the right, you'll see a plus sign. Now I have a desktop 1 and a desktop 2. Okay, and let me just do this real quick so we can better see the difference. So there's desktop 2. Okay, I'm sorry. There we go. I was just fixing something. So the idea is that you can open apps on one desktop, okay, and open different apps on another desktop. So again, the idea is that it helps with multitasking or organizing your work. So if you're let's say you're listening to music, okay, maybe you want to have that in a separate desktop so it's not kind of crowding your other windows where maybe in another desktop you're typing up a document and doing some internet research. So you can keep those things separate in 2 separate desktops. That way, when you're kind of trying to navigate through your windows to multitask, it's just one less thing to deal with. And then when you do want to kind of focus on what you're listening to, just switch to the other desktop, go to your music player, and do what you need to do there. All right, so that's what Task View does. Very simple. Again, you just point at it and just click on the new desktop icon to add another one. All right, you could just keep adding them as needed. And if you right click on them, you can choose a different background for that particular desktop. Sorry, the screen keeps going all over the place. This is kind of a hard one to show. You can choose the background. Okay, you can also rename it. So something more specific. So desktop 1 can be research, desktop 2 can be music, something along those lines. All right, now next to Task View, let me just go back to, there we go, making sure I'm on desktop 1. See, I'm starting to confuse myself. Next to Task View, this icon here is Widgets. Now, this is newer to Windows 11, and this is built into the taskbar because, again, they want you to use these. So if I click on Widgets, all right, this actually, so essentially what Widgets does is, if you're familiar with Widgets, they're kind of like little simplified apps or programs that just give you some limited functionality and information. So, for example, I have a weather widget in the top left corner, which is just giving me today's weather for where I live. Okay, there's some, I have some stock information. If I had, this is linked to my OneDrive account, photos. You can essentially, if you're, you can sync this to your OneDrive account so you can see different photos. And underneath we have some, you'll see a section of different news stories. All right, now, so a few things about widgets here. First of all, you have to be signed in order to use them. In the upper right-hand corner is the profile icon here, okay, where you can use that to sign in, but it should, when you first launch the Widgets app, all right, if you're not signed in already, it will say that right in the center there. It will just say, sign into your Microsoft account. And then you just sign into your Microsoft account. If you don't have one, you can just create one quickly. Just go to Microsoft.com and create one, all right? And by the way, it's good to have a Microsoft account because that's how you can sync different devices that use Windows and things like that. So give me 1 second here. All right, back to widgets. So I've signed in, now I have access to widgets. And so a few things about widgets here, you can add more. So a couple places to do that underneath the main, this top section here. Can I pin this? I wonder if I can pin this to the screen. I don't think I can. I'm just looking real quick. No, looks like, no. All right. Because the second I click on something, it's just a fly out. All right. So anyway, underneath the main section here, there's this Add Widgets button, okay, where you can click on it, and it will take you to different categories through which you can add more widgets, such as traffic, okay. So I've just added traffic as an example. I click on the X to close this now, and now we can see there's a traffic widget added down at the bottom, which again is localized to my area, to my location. You can also add widgets by clicking on the profile icon at the top right corner. You'll get the same menu. Now, you can also remove widgets and you can customize widgets. In any individual widget, you will see a 3-dot icon. That's the kind of the universal icon for more options. So for example, if I go to traffic and click on that, you will see remove widget, and then I can remove it from the list. Okay. You'll also see from that same menu, customize widget. And customize widget, one reason we often use this is to localize something. So if you open up the weather widget, if you look at the weather widget and it's not set to your location, this is where you would do that. Customize widget, and you'll see it says right here, edit location. Okay, specify default location, always detect my location. So if location service is turned on in your settings, Windows will just locate you automatically. Otherwise, you could just fill in that bubble and add your location yourself manually. Same thing with the weather here. All right, always detect my location, or I could type in a specific location into the box here and click save to save it. Okay, and it's not just location services. All right, like this one, for example, this is a sports one, which is giving me NHL news for hockey. If I go to customize widget, I could search a team or a league. Okay, if I'm or a different or maybe a different sports organization, NBA, NFL, etc. All right, so I could even be specific to a team if I want. It will give me all the updates and scores and whatever related to that team or that league or organization, whatever it is that you set. All right, so these are pretty cool because they give you everything's right there. Once you open it up, you're just getting real-time news, updates, scores, weather, traffic right here on your basically on your desktop. Okay, and if you click the links at the bottom of these, see full forecast, see more NHL. Essentially what it does is it will link you to actually Microsoft Edge like this, which is Microsoft's internet browser if you're not familiar. So that's all that will do. Is it will just, if you want more information, click on more at the bottom and it will just open up that particular widget as a full website in Microsoft Edge. All right, and if you scroll down your widgets, like I said, you also get, this is more specific to just news. Okay, news stories. Again, you can, let me see here. I believe it's just a continuous list. It just keeps scrolling. Even when you think you're at the bottom, it just keeps going because it just keeps adding more and more and more as you go. But you can actually customize the news. Again, click on the three dots and go to manage interests. All right, and from this menu here, which is opening up in Microsoft Edge, by the way, you can basically go through and select what things interest you, and that's what it will essentially put at least at the top of your news stories. All right, so if you're interested in sports, it will put that at the top. You can add sports, okay? And I think, let me see. I know you used to be able to do this. Discover interests. You may have to do it from the widgets. I know there's a way to hide. I might have to do it from the widgets. I'll have to research that more. Yes, okay. So from the widgets menu itself, there it is. I knew you could do it. Aside from managing your interests and kind of customizing your news, if you click on that more options icon, you'll see hide stories from, and then the source of that story. So if you want to hide stories from specific news outlets for whatever reason, you can do that here. All right, and then you won't get them in your feed. All right, and last but not least, you'll notice there is a search tool at the top. It's just an embedded search engine search bar. So if whatever it says search the web, whatever you type into it, it will just automatically bring you to Microsoft Edge, which is of course the browser Windows wants you to use since it's owned by Microsoft, and then you could search for information there. All right, now last but not least, of those four icons, we talked about search, task view, widgets, all right, and Microsoft Teams, which just comes up as chat, all right, which is kind of clever because it's almost like they don't want you to know it's Microsoft Teams. They're just calling it chat. Let me click on this real quick. All right, or at least it's a chat tool done through Microsoft Teams. So now with the prevalence of video conferencing, all right, everybody's using Teams. They might be using Google Meets, Zoom, GoToMeeting like this. Microsoft kind of got smart and they want you to use Microsoft Teams as like your preferred video conferencing tool, whether it's just for chatting real quick, calling somebody, or doing like a full video conference. Okay, so they've embedded it right here in your taskbar so you can't miss it. Nice purple icon right there. All right, so that's all that is. It's just it's a chat tool that kind of syncs up with Microsoft Teams, and because like I said, they're kind of trying to steer you towards that particular app. We can remove them. We'll come to that in a little bit when we get to settings. Actually, speaking of settings, we're going to come to that right now. So if you have any other questions, remember, just use the chat bubble in GoToMeeting. So to get to our Windows 11 settings, we're not going to go through the settings extensively. I just want to show you the different layout, and we'll go through a few things in case you're curious, things that I think are worth knowing, especially for the everyday user. So if I Oh, it looks like I have a slideshow background right now. Notice how the picture changed automatically. If I go to my start menu, there is, as I showed you before, there's a direct access point to settings now, which was not the case in Windows 10. You can just scroll down to the S's to get to settings here. You can also get to settings by right-clicking on the start menu icon and selecting settings from this list. Again, this list was available in Windows 10 in case you're not familiar with it. If you right-click on the start menu icon, you'll get a list just like this. And I can click settings here. Either way, it takes me to the same place, which is my Windows 11 settings app. All right, so right off the bat, this looks pretty different from what we saw with Windows 10, if you're familiar. So let me bring up an image of the Windows 10 settings so you can see it real quick. I actually have it saved here. Let me open it up in Paint or whatever program is fine. All right, so this was the settings portal, essentially, settings app in Windows 10. When we first opened it up, we came to a home page, which gave us a grid style list of all of our different categories, different settings categories. Okay. And then we would just select the category we want, and then we would take into the next screen, which is where we go to kind of navigate through that particular category. Okay, the different, let's call these sections, all right? And then in the next screen, we can navigate through the categories in that section, all right? Now in Windows 11, let's bring that back up. They've abandoned the home page, all right? No more home page. When you open it up, you're taken right to the settings themselves. So what they've done, by the way, it's a little, it's kind of that light gray color we saw with the taskbar, all right? A little kind of a consistency here. On the left side, they're giving us a navigation pane, all right? And in that navigation pane are all the main sections that we saw like in that Windows 10 settings homepage, all right? But now they're just in this left navigation pane, system, Bluetooth and devices, network and internet, etc. Notice again, each section has its own icon, okay? Again, making more use of icons here. Now, when you select a section, the categories for that section will be shown in the main part of the screen here. All right, and they'll be presented as essentially a list of expandable and collapsible menus. All right, notice the arrow here to the right. Okay, typically when you see that, that indicates an expandable and collapsible menu. You click on it, options open up, click on it again, it closes up. All right, so basically, in Windows 10, these categories, which are specific to a section, these were in the left navigation pane, okay? And the main section was on the home page. So they just kind of eliminated the home page and in a weird way, almost kind of just shifted things this way. Okay, so your main sections are on the left navigation pane. They're always there in your view. And the categories for that specific section are in the main part of the screen here. All right, so that's what it's doing. It's taking me directly to my system section. System here, and that's what we're looking at down here, system. Now, several of these sections have, sometimes these are called hero controls, kind of a strange term. Basically, they'll just show you, you'll often see kind of like settings that are frequently used or common. They'll just kind of show them there. Or they'll give you some other notifications there as well. But that's essentially what you're seeing there. You won't see them all the time, but some sections they'll have some of those things indicated to you. All right. And so let's just, as an example here, because I want to show you a little more here as we go through the settings, because there are some more changes. Let's go to Bluetooth and devices on the left. I'm going to click on that. Now I'm in that section. And I'm going to select mouse on the right. So this mouse settings, which is inside of my Bluetooth and devices section. Okay, and it takes me here to this screen. So first of all, notice the breadcrumbs. All right, sometimes we call these breadcrumbs or a file path, depending on what we're using, just to show you where you are. And if you want to go back to the previous screen, I could click on Bluetooth and devices and be taken back to this main, this screen here for all the other categories in this section. Okay, so in this way, it's sort of, like I said, kind of expandable and collapsible, all right, because we're going to one, but we can easily go back to the next and expand that one back and forth. So let me go back to mouse again. So now we're in mouse settings. So for one thing, again, it's kind of not so obvious, but as I've gone through this, I've noticed they've kind of, they've optimized screen space a little bit more here. In Windows 10, there were several settings where we had to scroll quite a bit to get to different parts of those settings, to get to specific settings. They've kind of reduced the need for extensive scrolling in a lot of these settings, I've noticed. All right, so we still do have to scroll occasionally, but oftentimes it's saving us a little bit of scrolling work. All right, so they're definitely optimizing screen space here. Just in the same way they're kind of optimizing the use of icons. Okay, now another thing I want to point to is that in Windows 10 settings, all right, we see this related settings section. So I'll explain real quick. I've explained this in my Windows Advanced class. Related, what Windows settings will do is, if there are related settings that belong to a different section, it will link you to those related settings. It's sort of a way to cross-reference, right? So where it says additional mouse settings here, pointer icons and visibility, and mouse pointer down here. Okay, the mouse pointer one, if I click on mouse pointer, notice what it does. It takes me to the accessibility section, okay, instead of Bluetooth and devices. So it's just a way of linking you to different sections because they're related in some way. In this case, in that they're referring to the mouse. Okay, now let me go back to Bluetooth and devices, or I could just go to related settings here under mouse, and that will take me back to the Bluetooth and devices settings for the mouse. And here we are again. Okay, so a couple changes here. First of all, related settings in Windows 10 used to be on the right side here. They were not quite as noticeable. Instead of having these nice boxes like everything else has, okay, they were just kind of blue links that were easy to miss unless you were really looking for them or experienced using Windows settings. Okay, so I like that a lot. They make that much easier. They link things much better here. Another difference is this one here, additional mouse settings. Notice it doesn't have an arrow here. It has a diagonal arrow. Okay, not the other arrows we've seen before. Okay, with that, indicates is it's essentially that icon generally indicates that it's going to take you to a different place entirely. So in Windows 10 settings, Windows 10, not Windows 11, some settings were still solely controlled in the control panel. So if you're familiar with Windows, earlier versions of Windows, their settings were managed by what was called a control panel. It wasn't called Windows settings, it was just the control panel. And it was a much more kind of rudimentary, kind of basic look. Okay, but that's how you can manage all these different settings we're talking about here through the control panel. Now, up until Windows 10, a lot of settings were still, for whatever reason, they weren't ported or added to this main Windows settings app. They were still managed only in the control panel for whatever reason. So when that was the case, you would just see a little link to the right again that said like additional settings or something like that. You wouldn't really know that it was taking you to the control panel. It was just kind of, you just had to guess. In Windows 11, we get this icon, and when you see that, it means it's going to take you to the external control panel. So now you know. But another thing, which actually, let me click on that real quick. I'll show you what I mean. There's the control panel right there. All right, it says mouse properties, and we have a few tabs, buttons, pointer options, wheel hardware. All right, and so we basically a lot of the same options that are in the settings behind us, behind this box, are also manageable here in the control panel. All right, now let me click on cancel. Another thing though is that in Windows 11, a lot of the control panel options that were formerly only available in control panel have been integrated into the Windows 11 settings. So in other words, a lot of the settings, Windows has added more settings to Windows 11 settings app, if that makes sense. So you don't necessarily have to go to the control panel quite as much as you used to in Windows 10. Okay. So again, they've added more control panel settings. They've integrated them into the Windows 11 settings app. Okay, but when you do see this icon, you do need to, you'll know that it's taking you to the control panel, and that's where you have to go to adjust some other specific settings. Okay, but like for example, mouse pointer speed. Okay, I used to have to go to control panel for this. Now it's right here in Windows settings. All right, and one other thing, I'll go through a few important settings in a second. I just want to also point out, if I can find, this one's going to be hard to show you because I have administrative controls on my computer. Let's go to, okay, so I went to system, that section, and then to the power category. You'll notice it says some of these settings are managed by organization. There's administrative controls on this computer that I cannot change, but on your own home version, sometimes you'll also see recommended settings, and you'll see it where I've indicated, okay? Basically, if you have, depending on how your settings are configured, okay, Windows might suggest or recommend a different configuration for whatever reason. It might optimize performance, it might be more secure, something along those lines. So with the default version, I would guess that you won't see those recommended settings too much because it's going to be set up in the recommended way. But as you potentially reconfigure things, Windows will give you recommended settings just to kind of say, hey, I know you did this, but in case, just so you know, you might want to put it back this way because of X, Y, Z. Okay, so just kind of look for those as you navigate through your settings. Again, they're just recommended settings that they'll put in like a little notification bar like that. All right, now a few that you might want to know about. Personalization section it's just like the personalization section in Windows 10. This is where you go to change your desktop background, for example. Okay, change your lock screen background as well. And Start and Taskbar, I'm going to go to those right now. So if we go to the Start menu, remember I told you that we can add some folders and other access points to the bottom of the Start menu. Here's where you do that. You go to Personalization, Start, and down here, you will see folders. Open that up, and these are all the different things you can add. All right, they're just little toggles on and off, very simple. You can add access point to your settings, File Explorer, and others. So let's say I want to add an access point to my Documents folder and an access point to settings. So I'll turn them both on, and there's no save or anything. I just go back to the Start menu, and you'll see that now they're available down there. Okay, down by the power button, we have a Documents icon and a Settings icon. And by the way, once you've added one or more of these icons, if you right-click on the icon itself in your Start menu, you'll see Personalize this list. So you can add more or take them away a bit quicker now. So once you've added one, you can right-click on it to get back to this setting screen here a little bit faster. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the left. Actually, let me go up to my breadcrumbs, click on Personalization to go back to the main personalization screen. And I'll go down to Taskbar. All right, so first of all, Taskbar Items. Remember I was telling you those 4 things that are embedded into the taskbar are built in. You can remove them. You'll see Search, Task View, Widgets, and Chat. Just turn them off if you don't want them there. All right, one moment while I get a sip of water, and then we'll continue. All right, sorry about that brief interruption there. So we can add or remove our taskbar items as I just showed you. And down here, I want to point your attention to where it says Taskbar Behaviors. All right, this one's not quite as obvious, so that's why I wanted to make sure I show you. If you want your Start menu icon to be on the left like it was in the old days, just click on Taskbar Behaviors. And under next to Taskbar Alignment, I wish they put this a little bit closer, but they put it all the way over here to the right. You'll notice it says center. All right, all you have to do is change it to left. And notice my taskbar icons all move to the left, and the Start menu icon is in the left corner as far as it can go. Okay, so like I said, it's not quite like Windows 10 where the other icons were in the center, but the Start menu is on the left. It's all grouped together, but at least this way, if you're just so used to going to the left to get to that Start menu, you can kind of simulate it by changing the taskbar alignment from center to left. And I'll put it back to the center. All right, and remember too, if you have a PC keyboard with a Windows key on it, you could always use the Windows key to open and close your start menu. All right, so you don't even have to use the mouse if you don't want to anyway. But if, like I said, if you're just so used to it and you want to put it back to the left, this is how you do it. Just change your taskbar alignment from center to left. Okay. Also on the left there is, so we talked about the personalization a little bit. The only other one I want to point out, which is kind of frustratingly different, in my opinion, is apps here. So if you're familiar with default apps, so there are several different apps out there that allow us to do the same kind of thing. So for example, if we're using the internet, we have Google Chrome, we have Microsoft Edge, we have Apple Safari, we have Mozilla Firefox. They're all different brands of apps that allow us to do that, but it's for the same purpose, browsing the web. Different apps for listening to music, right? iTunes, Groove Music, etc. So with Windows 10, we used to be able to change the default apps based on different tasks. So we would click on default apps and it would say, for example, music, and then you would select the default app you want to use. So whenever you open up a music file from your folder or something like that, it will open up in this specific app. Or a photo, all right, we would have pictures. When you open up a picture that's in one of your folders, it will open up in your Photos app or your Paint app or whatever. Now with Windows 11 here, I click on default apps and it doesn't organize it by task anymore. It actually organizes it mainly by the actual app itself. Okay, and there's a reason for that. Like I said, in Windows 11, they're really trying to get you to stick with Microsoft products. So let's say I go down to Google Chrome because I want to use that as my default web browsing app. Okay, when I click on it, I have to change all the different kinds of things that internet browser will open as a default. So I'll put numbers here like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay, so basically if I want Google Chrome to be my default app for all things internet, I have to change each of these one by one. And notice they're all, of course, set to Microsoft Edge as a default. So they're kind of making it a bit harder for you to change your default apps, especially when they want you to stick with Microsoft products. All right, it's possible, just a bit more time consuming. Let me go back to apps here. Again, that was apps and then default apps. All right. One last thing I want to show you real quick, and then we're going to wrap this up. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and direct them to GoToMeeting here, is snap layouts and snap groups. Okay, so with Windows 10 and earlier versions, we used to be able to snap our windows, which we could still do. One way to do that was to the top of any window, by the way, that's called your title bar. Okay, if you click and drag on the title bar, that's how you can move the window around. And if you brought it to the left side, it would snap and take up exactly half the screen. And then you could snap another window to take up the other half. Okay, we do this for multitasking. You could also do it in quadrants by going to the corners, clicking and dragging, going to a corner, and then selecting 3 more to take up 4 equal quadrants. Windows 11, they've added another way to do this, which is a bit easier and kind of easier to notice. All right, if you point at the maximize icon in your display controls at the top right here, let me circle it right here. Okay, your maximize, or if it is already full screen, it will be restored down. Let me go to that, circle that now. All right, in either case, if you point at that middle icon in your window display controls, you will get what you see right here. Okay, it's in the upper right-hand corner of my screen. All right, that's the snap layouts. So these are basically, it's basically an assortment of multi-zone layouts. All right, they call them zones, all the different sections of that layout. So basically, if I want to add this to a snap group, as they would call it, let's say I want to do 3, I can select maybe this one here. All right, you can select where you want it to go. And then, so it takes up 1/3 on the left, and then I can, from here, select the other 2 that I want. All right, maybe my internet browser in one, and maybe this picture in the other. And then if I wanted, and now furthermore, if I minimize them, which I might have trouble doing here, if I go down to my taskbar and point at any of the apps that are utilizing that snap group, such as Google Chrome here, I think that one I messed up, but let me see. It's kind of hard to show this one virtually. There we go. If I go to settings, in the thumbnail itself, it will show me the snap group, right? Right now it's just these 2 because I messed up the other one, unfortunately, but as you can, I think you get the idea. In the thumbnail preview, in that taskbar, it will show you a snap group, so you don't forget how it was grouped with other apps or other windows. All right, so again, very simple. If you want to get back to full screen, you just have to go to each window and use the maximize button to do that. And I'll just close this one, I don't need it. Same thing with Google Chrome here. I could just minimize that fully. Good. All right. So again, go to the top right, go to your window display controls, point at the middle icon, which will either be restored down or maximized, depending on how your window is currently displayed. And it will give you your snap layouts, and choose the layout you prefer. And at the same time, you're selecting where you want this specific window to be located in that layout. For example, left, middle, or right in the one we just used before. And then once you select that, you'll then select what other windows you want to include in that snap group. And they'll be placed accordingly with the snap layout you've chosen. And again, it's just the idea is multitasking. We could look at several different windows at the same time and use them at the same time. All right, now the last thing, as I mentioned, just remember that Windows 11 also from the ground up, okay, out of the box, again, so to speak, when we first install it, it has a better security base or baseline, all right, which there's a lot of technical stuff behind that, but just remember, if you want to see your security settings in Windows 11 settings here, you do have your privacy and security section, okay, and under security is the Windows Security app. Okay, you can launch this Windows Security app directly though without going through the settings at all by just going to your start menu, going to all apps, and then scrolling down to W to Windows Security here. And this is a separate app that's basically just managing your security settings and tools. All right. Virus and threat protection will show you any virus software that's installed and whether there are any threats. Okay, remember, what Windows 11, like Windows 10, it comes with Microsoft Defender, which is kind of a built-in antivirus solution. But if you want to add a different one, maybe one that's a bit more robust, you could do that. That's what's been done here. This is a third-party antivirus program that's been installed. Microsoft Defender is still there, it's still running, but this is the main one here that's been installed. But otherwise, you will get Microsoft Defender as part of Windows 11 anyway. Okay, and device security, that particular category here, this kind of gets to some of those things that are kind of required and built into Windows 11 now. The TPM, like I just referred to before, TPM 2.0, and a few other things. All right, this core isolation, that's kind of something that's just, as a default, it's added, it's turned on. Previously, it was an optional thing. Now it's just part of the operating system itself. All right, so at this point, I'd like to just I'll just kind of review what we discussed today. If you have any further questions, remember just direct them through the GoToMeeting chat bubble. All right, so let me just put this away here. I'm going to close my settings by just clicking on the X in the right-hand corner and bringing this up here. All right, so let's just recap what we discussed here. So in terms of changes and updates to Windows 11, a lot of this fell under the category of redesigns. All right, we said that our context menu or right-click menu had a bit more of an updated or upgraded look. But if we want to get to the classic view and to potentially more options, we just click on Show More Options. Okay. The taskbar redesign. All right, we said the default color is brighter, of course. The icons are placed at the center, your pinned apps and other icons, and you can change the alignment to left in your taskbar settings. All right, and it includes those built-in apps and features, or taskbar items as they call it in these settings: Search, Task View, Widgets, and Microsoft Teams, or Chat. The Start menu was, of course, redesigned, big overhaul there. The icon is placed alongside other icons in the center of the taskbar. And it has a grid layout, no more tiles like in Windows 10. All right, your pinned apps are showed in that grid layout. It first shows the pinned apps, and you must click all apps to see the full list of installed programs. And it has that embedded search tool as well to search documents, folders, and the web as well, and apps. Okay, remember your profile icon and power button are located at the bottom instead of on the left. And you can add folders and access points to Settings and File Explorer by going to Personalization and then the Start in your menu in your Windows settings. All right, another redesign was the Settings app. There's no more home page, and it makes better use of icons to illustrate the type of setting that you're accessing. More control panel tools have been added, which means less reliance on the control panel. And a dialog box launcher added to the settings that require the control panel, that little diagonal arrow. Okay. And frequently used settings or hero controls are shown at the top of the section page. And Windows will recommend settings based on current configurations. Now, the one thing I didn't open up because there's really not a whole lot to show, honestly, is your File Explorer app. All right. Essentially, it's set up the exact same way it was in Windows 10. All right. Nothing is different in terms of how we navigate through it, add folders, move files around, all those kinds of things, exactly the same. You just have some modern icons for your default folders, like documents, pictures, and downloads. Okay, and the menu option above is kind of the biggest change, all right? It used to use what was called the ribbon, which is when you click on different tabs to get the different tools. They've just pared it down to really just the essential tools. So it's kind of, again, for better or for worse, that's what they're doing now. I kind of like it, all right? It's just the essential tools you need for doing things like adding new folders, changing your sorting, okay, sorting the view of your folders, okay, are they arranged by date modified, arranged by name, things like that. So they just kind of pare down the menu above to just the essential tools. And you can still show hidden folders and libraries like you can in other Windows operating systems. You just have to right click on the left navigation pane in File Explorer. All right, and just remember, just to go over them again real quick, those built-in apps and features. Search tools found in your taskbar. Task view, also found in your taskbar, allows you to toggle among customized desktops. Widgets, found in your taskbar. You get real-time information from your favorite Microsoft apps. And widgets can be added, removed, and customized. And then Microsoft Teams or chat, found in your taskbar. You get quick access to chat and video conferencing. And also remember the other built-in feature, your snap layouts and groups. All right, you just hover over your restore down or maximize icon and it will enhance multitasking. And you can select from an assortment of multi-zone layouts, and snap groups will be shown in taskbar thumbnails. All right, and as I said, we get better security. The ones that many that were optional Windows 10 are now standard in Windows 11. And this is essentially the main reason why Windows 11 requires newer computers to run, because of these beefed up security features. And that down there is the icon for the Windows Security app. All right, so just a few other online resources to point you toward to help you if you have any other questions. To go back to that question, can I update to Windows 11 or upgrade to Windows 11? All right, if you're not sure if your computer can handle it, just visit the Windows 11 page on Microsoft.com. Okay. If you can't write that all down, just go to Microsoft.com and just select Windows for the main menu, and then select Windows 11, and it will take, and then you'll find a drop down for basically system requirements. All right, it's very easy to find. So just go to Microsoft.com to do that. And from there, you can review minimum system requirements. And from there, you can download the free PC Health Check app to automatically verify your computer's compatibility. All right, so it's free, it's quick to download. You just run it and it will tell you if it's compatible. If it's not, it will tell you why. All right, if you want more information on Windows 11 security, all right, more of the nitty gritty, the technical aspects, here's a great website here, which I'll leave on the screen. And also Windows 11 settings. All right, if you want more information on some of the settings that have been changed a bit, or in some cases even added, okay, there's a great article on that in windowscentral.com. All right, now I'm going to be leaving this slide, but I will, if you register for this class, I will be sending, I'll be sending links to these in a separate email too. So if you can't get them here, I will, if not today, definitely sometime tomorrow, I will be sending you an email with links to these different web pages. Oops, close that. All right, so thanks for coming to Windows 11 today. Remember that this was recorded and it will be available on our library's YouTube channel. To get there, visit mcl.org, our main library website. In the upper left-hand corner, click on the YouTube icon. All right, that will take you to our YouTube channel where you can go to playlists and then select the computer instruction playlist. Let me get rid of that actually. And let me just do this really quick. Off the cuff here. Good. Beautiful. All right, and if you have any further questions about our technology instruction program, all right, other classes we do, you can always send us an email to techclass@mcl.org. All right, so at this time, if you have no further questions, you can click the X in the upper right-hand corner of the GoToMeeting window and select Leave Meeting. If you are leaving, thanks so much for coming today. We hope to see you again in class very soon. All right, take care. I'm going to stop the recording now.